All right, we're going to get started. Everybody should see a screen share. The chat should be enabled for everybody. At least I hope so. Send your chats there. There's also a Q&A button at the top of Teams here. We're trying this just a little different platform instead of using Zoom or one of the broadcasting platforms. We thought we would try Teams and go from there. So today's topic is screening and hiring, presented by, hi Nancy.
Hi.
Presented by ourselves, Eureka Process and MSP Hire, with a goal to help MSPs hire great people. That's today's topic. And if we have any luck, we'll get to all the stuff today. For those who may not know me, I recognize several faces and names in the room today. And if you don't, my name's Alan. I was born wet and naked and unable to walk or talk. I overcame all of those things to join IT in 1994. I swear I'm not that old. I just started young. I started my own MSP back in 2002, sold it in 2011, ran two others in management positions, formed Eureka Process about 5 years ago. And as of last year, I'm now a published author and speaker, which I've enjoyed immensely sharing information with my peers. So that's a little about me. And we have Sarah in the room. Welcome, Sarah.
Hi.
Hello. Sarah's the president of MSP Hire, and she's been in basically making companies work for the last 13 years. And Sarah, a question I like to ask presenters who are not me presenting content is, why should we listen to you?
That's a really great question. And thanks for that intro, Alan. Like you said, I'm the president of MSP Hire, and for the last couple of decades, I have been doing the recruiting and the retention and team building for various size companies. So I know all too well the pain and expense of hiring and recruiting. So it's just really great to be here today with all of you, and we get to talk about my two favorite topics, the two things that make a difference to any size company in any industry, and that's people and process.
Nice. So speaking of process, you shared with me a little bit about a process you follow.
Yes.
It looks like this. So what are we going to cover today?
So this is our V screening process. So this is what our team does for our clients. And we are going to dive into most of these points today so that you guys can start creating your own hiring process within your company.
All right. So I'm ready to learn. Where do we start?
Okay, well, it might seem like a total no-brainer, but you would be astounded to see how many companies I see doing this really wrong or just missing it altogether. So the biggest question here is, how are you going to hire the right person the first time if you don't even know what you're looking for? So you're really going to, want to dive deep into what this person is going to be accountable for, what their key responsibilities are, and what their day-to-day is going to look like.
Okay.
And if you don't know what the day-to-day is going to look like, my biggest advice would be call in someone who does this role currently, or someone who does a role adjacent to it, because they're probably going to be able to shine some light on something that you haven't thought of.
Yeah.
And then finally, are they going to fit into your company's culture? And I know, Alan, you and Eureka Process, you do a lot about company culture. Is there anything you want to say about that?
Culture is something that exists in every company, and it can be sometimes hard to put a finger on what that is for you. But now is the time, because how are you going to know if this candidate fits? I also found it very interesting, a day in the life, because when you say that for the job description or the discovery of what you're looking for, I guess that gives you a chance to show possible candidates like what they would be doing all day long to really help them visualize that.
Absolutely, and that can come later on in the process. But for right now, you just want to make sure that what is in your mind actually matches reality.
Okay. All right, so we figure out what we want. Then what do we do?
And then a defined company culture makes the next step a lot easier for you. So we need to get the word out there. You're going to create a beautiful job description using what you've just discovered, and then we're going to advertise that position.
All right, so what's in a job description then that we've done this research for? What do we build it into?
Okay, so after the discovery phase, you have a really good idea of what you're looking for. You're going to make a huge list of everything you could possibly want from this candidate. And then you're going to highlight the non-negotiables. And the non-negotiables is what is going to go into the job description. You can save the other stuff for later on, maybe in the interview process or in the final interview. But when you are telling people what you're looking for, you don't want to give a qualified candidate a reason not to apply. So you're going to leave the nice to haves off the list for right now.
Okay.
So the current goal right now here is to get as many resumes as you can into your hands. And then lastly, we're going to give them a marketing statement. We're always asking candidates why we should choose them. We need to tell them why they should choose us.
So do you have any like Eureka process? I mean, I think we're cool when we have some yellow, but how would I make that a marketing statement? Like we're 6 people large.
Okay, so what is it that you do really well? What is one thing that sets you apart from most other companies?
I mean, a couple of our employees said that we have really awesome morning huddles. Like, do I include that in there?
Best morning huddles awarded by, the Eureka process team.
Now, is that gimmicky, or do you think that draws like candidates in, like we're a fun, quirky company?
It's both.
All right.
It's showing you're not taking yourself too seriously.
Okay.
It's a good thing.
So once we have that, how do we get that out there?
Right. So that's the next step, is we need to get the word out there. We're just going to get the first point on this slide out of the way. And I know I might get in a fight with you about this, and that's fine. Just you guys put your objections into the chat and we can address it later, but I'm not going to budge on this. And that is always advertise the salary. Okay.
Yeah, I know there's been a couple of times, like even shortly after I sold my MSP, I decided to look for jobs and go, wow, I would nail that job. And then I thought, yeah, it pays $30K a year.
Right.
And I'm like, oh, well, no wonder I would nail that job.
So what you're doing by doing that is you're walking the walk in terms of transparency, and you're also respecting candidates' time and you're protecting your own time.
Okay.
So then you need to get the word out in front of the people you're looking for. And our team focuses on the North America Big 3, which is LinkedIn, ZipRecruiter, and Indeed. Social media is really good too. If it's cheap and easy, put it there. But the number one thing you have to do each time you post it on any platform is a call to action. How are these people going to contact you to give you their resume? It can change from platform to platform. So this is a point I'd like to highlight, because if you miss this, it's a pretty useless endeavor.
I know something we worked on with Eureka Process a while back was trying to add some automation to these steps. And so we had to change our call to action a bit to help with that automation. That was important for us.
Right.
Nice.
So the next part is screening. You've created a beautiful job description. You've taken my advice and you've decided to advertise the salary. And now the resumes are flooding in. Let's talk a little bit about to not absolutely dread your existence while sifting through hundreds of candidates.
All right. I've definitely put this off before and suddenly had 1,000 people to sort through and hated my life.
Yes, it's not a good scenario. Actually, it is a good scenario, because what I'm going to teach you here today is that looking at a resume should take you a minute. And by a minute, I mean 40 seconds. All you're doing at this stage is you're scanning to make sure they have some relevant experience. You're also looking to see that there are no major red flags, like frequent changes in jobs or long periods in between roles.
My favorite resume rejection so far was a gentleman applied to our ad that was requesting server experience, and he'd been a server at Burger King for 1.5 years.
Okay, so That's a, Burger King would probably be a dead giveaway there. So that's really good. And you would have caught that in your 40-second review. But before we move on, I can't stress this enough. You have to block off time in your calendar to get these resumes reviewed. It's the easiest thing in the world to avoid. 30 minutes in the morning when you're going through this process should be enough. But if you don't do it, I'll let you know right now, it won't get done.
Again, I've been guilty of this before, and the next thing you know, by the time I am ready to look at a great candidate, they've already moved on.
Yeah, that's a
already been
sad
scooped up in
situation.
this market. Yeah,
Mhm.
that was a big waste of my time.
Big waste.
So I still reviewed the resume and didn't get the candidate.
That 40 seconds, you'll never get it back.
Yeah.
Okay, so we like to let automation do some of the heavy lifting here. This here is an example of what our team uses for an email interview. So if you take a look at number 2, can they break down simple concepts we take for granted into clear steps? Some people can't. Not only can they not do that, they won't even bother trying. And that is going to eliminate a large chunk of candidates that you do not need to send through to the next stages in your process.
I'm imagining a help desk technician who has difficulty explaining to a customer over the phone, grab the mouse, go down to the start button, hit the left mouse button. Yes, there's 2 buttons. Yeah, so I can see why breaking down those steps that we take for granted are important to see. So I'm also envisioning some tier 3 techs who are terrible at writing.
Yes.
How do you ever get any like kickback from these questions from candidates?
Oh, yeah, all the time. We had somebody reply with the middle finger emoji once. So,
Wow. Great
but
fit.
if you can't count on them, if they can't be bothered to thoughtfully respond to this, what do you think you can expect from their ticket notes?
Yeah.
So what you're
All
looking for here is really less about grammar or spelling, and you're really looking for effort and intent.
I was talking to one of your teammates last week, and he mentioned Chat GPT and its role on these questions. Do you want to fill in that story for us?
Holy moly. So they simply just put this into Chat GPT, copied and pasted what Chat GPT said, and then send it back. And it was all about how I am an AI. I don't know how to make a peanut butter sandwich, but I am an AI who is very good at blah, blah, blah. It was just absolute. That was a huge no from us.
And I would assume there's nothing wrong with using Chat GPT as long as you know enough to post a reasonable answer from the output.
Thank you very much. That is correct. Go ahead. Right. That just shows me you're resourceful.
No, I'm curious as you're showing me these steps. You're pretty much indicating there's a type of pass fail at every step. Like, how much are you weeding out by the time you get here?
So with the email interview questions, we have about a 43% failure rate, and that is either due to non-response or due to the fact that they can't break down and explain what they're trying to say.
All right, and do you grade it like a grammar school teacher, or how's that work?
No. So we're not, like I said, we're not taking grammar or spelling very much into account. We're really looking for what the candidate is trying to get across. Now, if this role that you're hiring for has a strong emphasis on grammar and spelling, then yeah, if it's horrible, maybe you don't want to move forward with them. But if it's not that big of a deal in their role, you can always address it at a later part in the interview process if it is concerning enough to do so.
Okay. Yeah. Excellent. All right, so they passed the email interview.
Yeah.
What's next?
So we send a personality and an aptitude test. Now, that personality side of the test is just to inform any questions we may want to ask the candidate. So let's say the personality test shows that the candidate is shy, but this role is customer facing. We want to ask questions to see how this candidate either uses their shyness to their advantage, or if there are coping mechanisms that the candidate has come up with in order to battle the shyness that they tend to be.
Yeah, I've definitely seen some testing in the MSP space that was kind of like, disc profile must match this, or they're not a good fit for this specific role. So you wouldn't subscribe to that direct philosophy.
Not at all. Not at all. No one fails the personality test because everyone has a personality. We
Okay.
are just collecting information to get to know them more in the interview process. Now, for the aptitude side of the test, we have a line in the sand. We routinely test our benchmark to make sure we're not totally out to lunch. And without fail, if we sneak someone through, they have not once succeeded. So we do know that this line that we've drawn is a good one, and we tend to stick with it.
And I'm curious, do you think that's more so because we're in IT, which is a constant, learning system that we're in?
Mm-hmm.
Cool. I do want to, Elizabeth asked a great question, which I think we can go ahead and answer now, which is when we're regularly testing the line in the sand, who are you testing? And I believe what you're saying is you have a candidate, they come in just under the line, you decide to push them through
That's
the
right.
rest of the process, and then they fail during the rest of the process and they never make it to the finish line.
Yes, that is
that right?
exactly what I'm
Okay.
saying. Yep. So they come really close. Maybe we really liked what they said in the email interview. So we think that there could be potential there. And I'm telling you, not even once have they gone through to the end. They've never once been a
Yeah.
successful candidate.
And obviously, guys, your mileage may vary on what that line is. I think what I'm hearing is that aptitude in IT, especially, is important.
Yes.
So we want to look for those types of things. We use one type of test. Their measurement systems are going to be very different than any other test that you use. So please choose accordingly. And Elizabeth gave me a great reminder as well. Again, the chat box is available for those who just joined. There's also a Q&A forum if you want to post to that. We are going to take those questions at the end if we haven't gotten to them live. Excellent. All right. So personality aptitude test. They're above the line. They have a personality. I like this person still.
So let's talk to them.
Okay.
The next step is a phone or a video interview, and that should be scheduled for a 30-minute block. So it's not super long. And it's just a chance for you to really get to know these people, this person. You're going to want to build rapport, be human. You could even treat it like a sales call. What you don't want is at this stage to dismiss an applicant just because they're nervous. So if you've asked them a question and they haven't given you the answer you were looking for, ask it again using different words. Maybe they just needed a second to gather themselves. So you really want to make sure that they satisfy the non-negotiables and that you can have a connection with the person.
All right. So did I hear you say 30 minutes?
Yes.
All right. So we got to build rapport, which is like the how are you? Please don't be nervous. We want you to succeed.
Yes.
A lot of non-negotiables in our space are technical.
Yes.
How do you handle that in such a short time frame?
So take the most important technical piece for the role that you're hiring and ask them about it. Ask them to describe how they would handle it if it went wrong, or ask what their best experience is about it. Keep it open-ended and do not play hardball with them at this stage. You don't, like I said, you don't want to waste your time or their time if they don't know, if they can't satisfy the non-negotiables, they're not going to move on to the next step. But right. You're trying to get them to succeed without making assumptions about what their skill set is.
without making assumptions, right? So don't fill in the gaps for them.
Right.
It sounds like you're also taking a very Eureka process style approach, which is by limiting the time, you actually have to prepare a little more ahead of time and know exactly what question you want to ask. Keep it
Yes.
a high level and explore that one thing. You can't check all the boxes yet.
No, and you don't want to try.
All right. All right. So let's just make some more assumptions here. I've done this phone/video interview. I think I like them. I have a lot more to figure out, but they present themselves well. We had a rapport. They answered my first few tech questions pretty competently. What do I do next?
So you're going to want to let them know when they can expect to hear from you. And you're going to want to stick to that. And that just goes back to walking the walk of transparency. So maybe you're calling or emailing them to let them know that they're not a good fit and they won't be moving forward. Or maybe you are calling to set up a final interview. If that's what you're doing, it would be a good time to let them know who will be in the room during the final interview.
Okay, so who is in the room?
For the final interview, I say no more than 5 people. You should schedule it for anywhere between 90 minutes and 2 hours. So this is going to be a time investment. It is a good chunk of time. You're going to want to have anyone that has a say in the hiring in the room. So the direct manager, maybe an owner, a peer. A peer is really good to have in there, especially for the candidate if they have any questions. And it also, again, transparency. I'm saying that again, but having a peer in the room kind of showcases a commitment to transparency.
Yeah, I was seen as an oddball a while back. This is probably 8 years ago now, where I was hiring in the service department, a service delivery manager. In our final interview step, we did have 5 people in the room.
Yeah.
It was myself as a service manager who would be their manager in the end, 2 owners. We had 1 other person in our leadership team who was also a dispatcher at the time, and we invited a peer in the room. And the peer is usually kind of our technical BS meter. I was fairly technical. I could usually do that, but it was nice for somebody else to say, "Hey, I'm going to be working with you. Do you know this? Do you know that?" But at the same time, because there was 5 people in the room, I found that I had to set them at ease, to help them succeed. I had to roll out the red carpet. I received them beforehand. I put them in the conference room, let them know there were going to be 5 people coming in the room.
Yeah.
It's going to feel like a lot, but it's okay. We're here to help you succeed and make sure this is going to be your best starting day ever.
Yes.
And I spent a lot of time placating it, so I had to understand the stress that might cause for that many people in the room. So it's a challenge. It can be overcome.
Absolutely. And it just shows a lot of respect when you are letting the candidate know what your intentions are. Your intention isn't to intimidate them. Your intention is to make sure everybody on both sides are satisfied. So there's a book by Patrick Lencioni called The Ideal Team Player. I know you've read it.
Yeah, it's a great book. He has a lot of great books.
So he identifies 3 winning characteristics for the ideal candidate, and that is hungry, humble, and smart. If there are any outstanding questions in your mind about whether this candidate fulfills those 3 things, now is the time to get to the bottom of it. You're also going to want to make sure that all the non-negotiables are absolutely fulfilled.
Let me hit the hungry, humble, smart. I have read that, and those 3 words are a great mantra, but they might make a little less sense to you if you haven't read the book. So in a nutshell, hungry is basically energy. Do they want this? Do they have desire to do what you're doing in your business, and they want to be there? The humble, a little easier to understand, without ego. They're not trying to self-aggrandize. They want to help a team and support people. And the smart's a misnomer. Yes, we have an aptitude test. We're in IT. We're smart people. All of us are. However, the smart in his book is actually emotional intelligence, or EQ. So when they say smart, it's like, can they read a room? Can they interact? Can they adjust? So just a little nutshell for what that means. That's a great baseline criteria to add to your own core values and culture fit and your technical requirements.
Absolutely. And then the last part here is like you said, rolling out the red carpet, so to speak. Why should they choose you? Because at the end of the day, this person is probably applied to a lot of jobs. And if they're really who you want, you need to tell them why you're the best choice for them.
With a manager of my age, as young as I am, I still have some of those old school philosophies back when there were plenty of people looking for jobs.
Right.
Finding the good ones was hard and everybody wanted to work for you. Heck, it's been true for over a decade now, though, where that's reversed, and it's even stronger today, where there's more job openings than there are candidates.
That's right.
That doesn't mean we want to make it any easier to hire somebody, but we need to convince them as well. I can't agree more on that statement.
So if you found your ideal candidate, you can move on to the fun part. And what you're going to do is you're going to pick up the phone and you're going to negotiate with them over the phone. You're going to offer them the job over the phone. So the reason you're going to do this is because sometimes a written offer can feel really final. The last thing in the world you want right now is for things to fall apart because you're not quite there on the same page as each other. So it's really important that you just get talking, you get comfortable, you're on the same page, and then you can send it in writing.
So real story, I did lose a candidate once because I sent the written offer after our interview via email, and I ran into him like 18 months later. I was like, what happened? I never heard back from you. He legitimately misunderstood the meaning of one of the words we said. Like coverage on health insurance, something silly like that. And so he thought the offer wasn't for him, and he couldn't sign it, so he just moved on. And if I had done that over the phone, I think I could have gotten through that and at least opened the dialogue so when he saw the written offer, he might have been willing to reply like, hey, what does this mean? Oh, yeah, we're good. Let's sign it. And we had to go through the expense of hiring all over again.
Yes, exactly. That's a perfect illustration of exactly what I'm talking about. So
where were you 10 years ago?
Sorry. Once you're on the same page and you've sent them the written offer and they've accepted, the next step is onboarding. And you're onboarding for retention, which means setting clear expectations. And I know Eureka Process is genius at this, aren't you?
Most of the time. Yeah. So onboarding, it's something Eureka Process does a lot of, and it's not just setting expectations for the employee, even though it's also that. It's having a path and a plan that the employee can see, that the rest of your team can see, and to be honest, it's a lot of work. You need to have your processes down for this work. Just to give you we have time, a quick preview of an ideal onboarding process for a technician, for example. Roughly, you can always adjust this. Week 1, learning internal policies, processes, and tools. Week 2 involves more shadowing of work being done that they're going to be doing. Week 3 is reverse shadowing, meaning you're working with them. They get to click the mouse and you get to watch. And week 4, I usually move to the drip method, which means I'm going to drip one ticket on you at a time, let you resolve that ticket on your own, bring it back to us for quality assurance. And then obviously time scales can shift and ultimately they end up working on their own like normal. But what so many people miss in that is there should be processes and policies to study in their onboarding, and the manager needs to be reviewing those as a part of the process. You don't just set them loose and go. Speaking of red carpet and expectations, don't have your technician build their computer on day 1 and set it up. Have it set up with them with the crib sheet, their passwords, URLs on the keyboard, ready to go. We are so excited for you to be here. We are prepared for you. Let's get started. And also don't just abandon them to go shadow some people. Good luck. So Eureka Process would love to help on things like that. All right. So they're onboarded. I would call that a success.
Yes. Absolutely.
We are going to take Q&A in a moment. So real quick, Sarah, you gave us your time. Thank you so much for giving us this content. If we had more questions and want to follow up, tell us a little bit about how that works.
Absolutely. Right here, there's a QR code. Please, if there's anything that you want me to delve into more, if you want to have a chat about anything at all, set up a meeting with me. I would love to hear from you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. I also promised in this meeting an announcement from Eureka Process. Nothing will ever be the same. So here's the announcement. Some of you who've known us for a while might have already caught on to this or already know this. Eureka Process stood up a V-screening service, a department, about 2 years ago. It's been wildly successful doing these things that Sarah has talked about. And so since I teach all of my clients that they need to focus, which means finish one course until successful, I have found my focus split. So we decided to, back in January, split off that service called V-Screening into its own company, and that company is MSP Hire. I hope you don't think I wasn't being transparent enough. I didn't want to confuse anybody with what's going on. I wanted you guys to have this content first so that you can use that in your own business. But that's what's going on is we're introducing MSP Hire to the world. I will actually not be an active part. I'll still be involved. I'll still talk to folks. I still work with Sarah and her team. But her and her team have this going forward. Sarah is the president and my business partner in this venture, so feel free to congratulate her or give her your condolences if you know me. That's all fine. That's the announcement. And in doing that, I was like, okay, Sarah, we need to kickstart this thing off right. What's the best special we can do to encourage people to consider doing business with us? And then we're going to drop into Q&A, I promise. So what is that special, Sarah? What'd you decide for us?
So we are going to offer you 50% off the screening portion of our service if you book before the end of the month. So you have a week. Book a call with me. Let's get going together and let's make the magic happen. Let's get your teams growing.
For you business owners in the room who have difficulty delegating, I just want you to know I am freaking out a little bit that she's offering 50% off. But I made her the president. She gets to decide. I'm sure she will hit her KPIs when the time comes. Very good. All right, we're going to shift to Q&A now. I've got just one or two questions here. First from Elizabeth. They've had some interviews where it seems that everything's going well. They have all the technical knowledge they need, but when they actually get to work, it doesn't prove to be the case. The three questions you asked, they nailed it. They seem to even know ancillary stuff, and then they get to work and like, oh, well, maybe that's all they knew, or they don't know how to apply it. Do we have any reliable ways to gauge that?
Well, that is definitely an odd scenario that somebody would maybe be book smart, but not practically smart. And I think in that situation, I would ask them what the roadblock is. Elizabeth, how did you deal with that? I'm curious, because that would be my what I would do is I would talk to them and say, hey, you presented yourself this way. You seem to really know what you're talking about. Maybe they just need help putting it into practical form.
Okay. Curious too, for Elizabeth's sake, is there actually an aptitude test? Because many times we do the technical knowledge, right? And they tend to get it, but that knowledge might have been hard won, right? I mean, memorized from a book or through a certification program. And that's what I've loved about adding the aptitude test. And I've been screening resumes myself since 2004 when I had my first hire at my old MSP. And I didn't add aptitude testing until probably 5 years ago. And that really has helped me understand, can this person learn and grow beyond what they know? In fact, many times I will hire aptitude over knowledge. So that could be a missing piece, Elizabeth. I don't want to put all my eggs into a test. Not everybody tests well. But that's how I would do it. And I also know Billy on our team. He's quite technical, and he loves just asking open-ended questions like, "Tell me what you know about DNS," and just kind of guiding the conversation from there to see how they put their thoughts together. Call that an informal aptitude test. Elizabeth, feel free to post follow-ups on that if we didn't quite answer your question. We also have a question from Marjorie. What is considered an acceptable time frame for a candidate to go through all these steps? Ooh, tell us more, Sarah.
Oh, that's a good question. And usually this happens naturally because candidates are hungry or the candidates we want are hungry. But we like to see all of this happen within a week. Like the email questionnaire and the aptitude test. And then usually we're able to schedule the phone interview in the same week.
In the same week? Wow.
Yes.
I don't know as a manager if I can move that fast. Do you think as long as they're engaged, candidates would survive longer in the pipeline?
In this economy, we don't really want to leave people that are qualified and eager in the pipeline because they're going to be eaten up by somebody else.
Okay.
If you're continually engaging them in the process, and you have to extend the time, that's the way to do it. Keep in touch with them. But really, we like to kind of get this wrapped up as soon as we can because people aren't just going to hang out there.
And my experience has also been that sometimes I'm waiting on candidates, especially if they're currently employed. They might only check their personal Hotmail account once every few days to take the next steps.
Right. And I mean, if that's their timeline, then that's going to be their timeline. We're not going to be just waiting for one candidate, though. We have a lot of other candidates that are going through the same process. And sorry. I'm so interested about Elizabeth's question. Yes, so we have a lot of people on the go all the time, and we're not waiting around for anybody.
Right. I will say that I actually had to address this topic in another presentation I'm giving in a couple of weeks regarding PSA automation. Presentation is everything. Mm-hmm. You guys have a lot of steps from point A to point B.
Yes.
We've been very careful and deliberate about how we word communications. We make it clear that, hi, we are so-and-so. We have actually reviewed your resume.
Yes.
And we have a good feeling about this. Here's the email interview, and this is what's going to happen after that. Mm-hmm. Taking a moment to choose those words properly is important because you want to show them that this is not just some giant automated system you're chugging through. I find, yeah, go ahead, Sarah.
Well, that's a good point. And so some of the things that we presented for you guys to create your process isn't exactly how we do it. For example, we take a closer look at a resume before we send the email interview because we don't want to have as many no responses as we sometimes get if we're not careful with who we're approaching.
Right. So Elizabeth did have a follow-up to her questions that they are using aptitude testing. The scores seem to be okay. Just that attention to detail piece is missing in the employee once they're hired. It's hard to tell that ahead of time. I'm spitballing here, Elizabeth. This is not a direct solution to your problem, but having ideas. I was actually on the fence about hiring one of our teammates. And I was like, yeah, they have this, they have that, they have the resume. And they're like, well, what's your hesitations? And my answer, I'll just be direct and transparent. My answer was, I don't know if they can run a meeting and command the room, which really isn't a technical thing I can ask. And her response back, who I was talking to at the time, was like, why don't you have them run a meeting and command the room? Oh, so I said, hey, dear candidate, we're so close to the end here. This is my concern. Can you come to me with a 10-minute meeting? You pick the topic, and you make sure you get my input during the meeting and command the room. And he took to the exercise like this. It's an awesome meeting. He even picked topics that were relevant to what we're talking about. it was a slam dunk and I got on the job. So Elizabeth, if you're seeing things like inability to follow a checklist, maybe you have to add one more thing to your process that says, here's a checklist, go follow it. Just see how it's responded to. And there are other testing tools out there as well that can even record how the mouse moves on a screen during certain types of tests, just to show how they think and how they operate. It's not going to be perfect. You can't win them all. I know that the processes MSP hire has or above average acceptance rate with not only sending candidates that get hired, but people who stay. But it's not perfect. You know, people are people. In fact, I think last year the biggest reason we had for people not sticking around was health issues. You know, not even pre-existing conditions. Not that you can hire based on those. But it was like things that came out of the blue. We can't predict all of those things. Any other questions? I see Elizabeth is typing, so we'll give her a moment as well. Typing. Sarah, anything else you'd like to add?
I think, you know, if you follow the process that you have, Alan's always talking about not breaking the process. And that's probably the biggest piece to success, I could say. Of course, you can only ask what you can ask. And sometimes people are going to squeak through and they are not going to turn out to be who they thought or who you thought they were. But hopefully by following your process, you're really eliminating most of that.
Got it. Elizabeth's asking if we have the name of the test that tracks the mouse movement. I don't. If you will email me, or better yet, email Sarah. I'm gonna give you. Can I give your email address out, Sarah?
Yes, it is Sarah, SARAH, @msphire.com. I'll just put it in the chat.
Cool. If you'll email us, we'll find out. I know we have a couple of clients who are using that on their own. I can't remember the names of them. But I know it's happened. It even had things where it showed them what they were typing in the question and when they backspaced and when they copied and pasted large chunks of text. And when, what else? Oh, and the time per question, time for the test. I don't know that I would use that in every case. Just another great topic. Speaking of which, there are all sorts of assessments out there. And with the number of jobs available and the few qualified candidates that exist, we've been very careful about how many assessments we add. Because next thing you know, it's an 18-week process and nobody survives the process or they found another job already. So it's a constant push and pull on how much do we need to get ahead of time, how much do we need to get them to the finish line. But it's certainly a lot easier to add something after you've talked to them and established rapport and let them know what's going on.
Yes.
Automation is great. We'll have other topics in the future about automating this process, but don't over automate because we're dealing with people who want to work with people.
That's right.
Any parting thoughts before we disconnect, Sarah?
Well, just thank you for having me and for coming together on this topic. And like I said, I'm here to have any conversation with any of you on anything you heard here. I'm here for it. So don't hesitate. Even if it's not about V-screening, if you are talking about your own process, I'd love to help.
Sounds great. Thank you so much, Sarah. And just for the crew out there who know Eureka Process or myself, this is our official announcement party. You're here first. MSP hires a thing. Look for more great things to come from them. They are out there on LinkedIn so far. More coming soon. And you'll see Sarah and the rest of the team out there in the marketplace, and looking forward to working with you guys or just helping out where we can.
Absolutely.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.